Welcome once more to the Ministry of Information and Communications, and this is our national press briefing. Due to the COVID measures, you cannot see a lot of journalists in the hall here, but representatives from various major mainstream media institutions, and we are live also on the SLBC television, as well as social media platforms, and other members have joined us on the GIMS network. And so you're talking to the nation, and everybody is seeing and hearing what we are doing here today. So on this note, as usual, every press brief, we have the national update, and that will be followed by introduction of our main speakers of the day. I'll now invite the Honorable Deputy Minister of Information and Communications to give us briefs on the updates around the country, and after that she'll introduce our speakers for today. So we now invite the Deputy Minister for the updates for today and this week.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Good afternoon to our guests from the ONS and of course the Anti-Corruption Commission, and good afternoon to you members of the Fourth Estate, and good afternoon to you viewers, and thanks for joining in for this press conference. Like Emmanuel mentioned, we continue with our press conference at the Ministry of Information to bring the public up to speed on activities that are happening in the various NDAs. So today we are opportunity to have with us a team from the ACC and the Office of National Security. But before we go on to the main items on the agenda, let me quickly go through our update for the week. The Ministry of Information, in collaboration with mobile network operators and internet service providers, is holding a one-day validation meeting on the draft electronic communications bill. The validation exercise is the product of the ministry's continuous and collective effort to making this draft electronic communications bill an all-inclusive national document. The program is being held at the Country Lodge in Freetown, and it attracted members operating in the mobile network operating field, and of course the internet service providers, as well as National Telecommunications Company, NATCO. They are having that meeting this afternoon at the Country Lodge. The Ministry of Information and Communications continues to roll out community and media engagements on the recent COI and government-wide paper across the country. The ministry has had engagement with civil society organizations, tribal heads, religious leaders, market women, bike and keke riders, and drivers union members, among others. The team from the Strategic Communications Unit is crisscrossing the country, bringing to the public contents of this white paper. In pursuance of his flagship program of human capital development, President Julius Maada Bio has officially opened the Dr. Kadi Sise School for Girls in Port Loko. This development came shortly after he launched a 5-year 2020 to 2025 66 million multi-donor free quality education trust fund. Police have arrested 10 suspects who were involved in masquerade displayed in Makeni, thereby retarding efforts by ACC to interview former President Nkrumah on his stewardship. The Minister of Finance, Jacob Jusu Safa, and team have developed a 5-year strategic plan to engage IMF and other development partners to support national economic development. And finally, in a bid to provide an alternative source of energy for the people of Sierra Leone, the Minister of Energy, Alhaji Kanja Sise, has officially handed over distribution networks to 5 communities in Koribodo, Jimmy Bagbo, Tikonko, and Sumbuya in the south, and Kailaun in the east. That's what we have for you for this week as updates. Now we go on to the issues of the day. Like I mentioned earlier, we have today in our midst officials from the Anti-Corruption Commission and Office of National Security. The Anti-Corruption Commission was established by the government of Sierra Leone with the promulgation of the Anti-Corruption Act 2000, which gave the ACC its legal existence. It was set up primarily to investigate alleged instances of corruption and to prevent corrupt practices. The Anti-Corruption Act 2008 repealed and replaced the Anti-Corruption Act 2000 with the aim of strengthening the ACC to most effectively execute its functions and mandates. The new act gives prosecutorial powers to the ACC, encourages integrity in public life, and increases the corrupt offenses to make corruption a high-risk venture. The government of Sierra Leone's medium-term national development plan 2019 to 2023 was founded on a strong political commitment to deliver development results that will improve the welfare of its citizens. The plan charts a clear path towards 2023 and routes to the goal of achieving middle income status by 2039 through inclusive growth that is sustainable and leaves no one behind. In Sierra Leone, the New Direction Agenda have made far-reaching commitments to push the anti-corruption agenda forward. It is important that leaders bring the political will and visibility to the issue, and it is also important to complement this prominence with technical know-how, good regulation, and hard work. So today we have officials of the ACC, like I mentioned, led by Mr. Patrick Sandi, and of course Mr. Kwevayamara. They are here to update the press on ACC's roadmap in enhancing the country's midterm national development plan. So I'd like to invite Mr. Patrick Sandi to please come up and talk to us.
Thank you, Madam Minister. Members of the First Estate, ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to be here this afternoon so that we can share with members of the public how the fight against corruption is positioned in the National Development Plan. In Cluster 4 of the National Development Plan, we have fighting corruption and illicit financial flows, which states, corruption and illegal financial flows have been some of the most persistent challenges facing successive governments, posing a significant threat to socio-economic growth, development, and stability. Abundant evidence shows that fighting corruption and illicit financial flows at all levels is crucial for alleviating extreme poverty and boosting private sector growth and development. The lesser the incidence of corruption in the country, the greater the likelihood of steady economic growth, as investor confidence will increase significantly. So on that note, the Anti-Corruption Commission, through its National Anti-Corruption Strategy and even its strategic plan, has aligned programs that will address this. And in the almost 2.5 years of the administration of Francis Benkai-Fala, the Commission has taken very bold steps to fight corruption and illicit financial flows. Let me mention that the Commission has forged partnerships with the Financial Intelligence Unit, and a memorandum of understanding was signed on 8 April 2019. In the spirit of the MOU, the two institutions have collaborated extensively and conducted joint investigations on a number of issues bordering on corruption and money laundering. On the aspect of governance, the Commission has also signed memorandum of understanding with governance institutions such as the Public Sector Reform Unit, the National Commission for Democracy, the National Public Procurement Authority, and the Human Rights Commission Sierra Leone, to name but a few. Let me also take this opportunity to inform all that the Commission over the 2-year period have made massive improvement in local and international corruption perception indexes, including the Millennium Challenge Cooperation Scorecard. The Transparency International Corruption Afrobarometer report, released in 2019, ranked Sierra Leone third among 35 countries in Africa on government's effectiveness in the fight against corruption, with 66% of Sierra Leoneans believing that the government is doing very well in the fight, against 19% of citizens who had held that view in 2015. Let me also state that since we were ranked third in Africa, in West Africa, we ranked first. Also, Sierra Leone jumped 10 places upwards in the 2019 Transparency International Global Corruption Perception Index, from 129 in 2018 to 119, scoring 33 points. And for the first time, scoring above the sub-Saharan average of 32. And I must also add that for 2 successive years, we are stopped at 30 and not moving at all. That is in 2018-2017. On the Millennium Challenge Cooperation Control of Corruption Indicator, Sierra Leone in 2019 scored an impressive 79% and had scored 71% in 2018, but had failed in 2017 with 49. On the local front, the 2019 National Corruption Perception Survey report, titled Actions, Hopes and Impediments in the Fight Against Corruption in Sierra Leone, commissioned by the Center for Accountability and Rule of Law with funding from DFID, indicates that 92% of respondents said the view that the ACC has been and is creating the greatest impact in the fight against corruption. And very recently, 2020, the Institute for Governance Reform released the Afrobarometer 2020 Corruption Perception Survey report, which states that corruption prevalence reduced by 30% from 70% in 2015 to 40% in 2020. Let me state that the ACC is poised and resolved in making sure that the results scores on corruption perception surveys, local and international, get better. In that regard, with the cooperation of the public and the support, the ACC is determined by 2023 to be in the 2 digits of 80 or better in the TI perception survey. For the MCC, the ACC also will continue to make steady improvement and progress on the scorecard. And it will also ensure that Sierra Leone wins the compact, which will be at an about $400 million United States dollars provided to the government of Sierra Leone. In addition, as a show of robustness in the fight against corruption, the ACC worked with stakeholders and ensured the amendment of the 2008 Anti-Corruption Act, which granted increased powers by increasing also the penalties or punishments for corruption offenses, and also sanitized and streamlined the assets declaration regime. Currently, as we speak, following the declarations in 2020, the asset declaration team is now working assiduously in analyzing and processing the forms so that we are able to disaggregate the forms by politically exposed persons, financially exposed persons, and those who had failed to declare in a bid that will kick in the administrative sanctions and then other sanctions as well as has been amended in the Act. Also, the Special Anti-Corruption Division has been established within the High Court of Sierra Leone, and a court infrastructure with 5 dedicated judges who sit on anti-corruption matters. The ACC has also recovered, within the last 2 years, over 22 billion leones, which would have otherwise been lost to corrupt individuals and has paid same to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. It has also recovered 2 vehicles and handed same to the Ministry of Transport and Aviation. A 2-story building in the heart of Koidu City has also been recovered and handed over to the government of Sierra Leone through the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. The Anti-Corruption Commission is investigating cases prior to matters referred to it with the release of the government white paper arising from the commissions of inquiry reports. I'll be remiss if I don't mention, topical of them is the investigation involving the former president, Dr. Ernest Bai Koroma, and his planned interview on Thursday, 8 October 2020. The interview did not hold for reasons I believe we all in this room are by now fully aware of. However, the Commission is planning on the next steps, which it will disclose to the public on a need-to-know basis. What I mean by on a need-to-know basis is basically as to the information that will be needed to the public is what we give out. And I must end by stating that the Anti-Corruption Commission, as had been indicated by Madam Minister, is established by law and we have a duty to perform. And as such, what we are doing at this stage is merely performing our role. And our role is clearly enshrined in Section 7 of the Anti-Corruption Act of 2008 as amended in 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Commissioner, Francis Benkaifala, on whose instructions we are here, the Deputy Commissioner, Augustine Gobi, and the rest of the team at the ACC, we count on your support at all times, particularly at this crucial time when we know that the fight is tough. Thank you for this, and I'll pause once you ask questions at another time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patrick Sassi, for that update. I'm sure media colleagues will be ready with questions for you, but we'll come to that shortly. I'd like to now invite Mr. Francis Bakaili, who is the Director of Planning, Interagency Relations and the Office of National Security. Now, the Office of National Security manages department-wide programs that provide oversight, policy direction, standards and performance assessments in areas of intelligence, counterintelligence, inside threats, cyber threat intelligence, national security, and much, much more. So if we're here talking about midterm national development plan, of course, security of the state is a very key ingredient in achieving that particular development we're talking about. So Mr. Kiley is here this afternoon with us, like I mentioned, and he's been talking to us about security sector plans to enhance national cohesion, peace and security. So Mr. Kiley, may I please invite you to take the podium.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Minister, colleagues from the ACC, members of the protest. We have what you call military aid to government departments, specific government departments, whether it's NRA in terms of revenue generation, whether it's the Ministry of Fisheries in terms of maritime security, revenue generation in terms of patrols on the high seas and the like. So there are specific government departments, or whether it's assistance to the Environmental Protection Agency to provide security for catchment areas, reforestation. And we also have MAC-C, military aid to civil community. which we use our military assets, like the events of disaster relief. If you notice, we'll be essentially using our military assets in terms of disaster relief, for disaster preparedness and prevention. Like we saw the mudslide, and even this year we saw military intervention, in the cleaning of Freetown, and that is why we do not experience the kind of massive, calamities that we used to experience anytime we had disasters, as the case might be. So we prevented those ones a lot. And what we've also done is, we know that our borders are extremely porous. As I'm speaking, we have about 961 crossing points between Sierra Leone and Liberia and Guinea. And only about 25 of those are manned. So you can imagine about 900 plus are not manned. They are ill-defined and extremely porous. Yeah. So to strengthen our territorial integrity, we have what we call joint border patrols under MACP, in which the police and the military on a monthly basis they conduct joint border patrols, and those patrols have assisted a lot, in apprehending smugglers, unwarranted aliens, that want to cause mischief, even issues related to human trafficking, drug trafficking. Yeah, so we'll be able to step up our border patrols in that regard. And what we also trying to do through the defense white paper, specifically for the military, there are certain requirements. We want to rebrand the military. It's not only that you use the military for territorial aggression, as the case might be, but every peace times you should have a very functional military. So what we've done through the defense white paper that we developed is we want to see how best we can be able to revamp the agricultural component of the RSLF, so that they will be able to produce food items in which they can feed themselves. Likewise for the police. As I'm speaking, the money that government spends to import rice for those institutions is so enormous. Secondly, the RSLAF has a whole engineering component. If those components can be revamped, if you go to countries like Egypt, their military contributes a lot to their socio-economic development strides. Their military has a very, very functional engineering component. So most of these things that governments outsource, contractors on very high fees, those are things that can be done, like feeder roads reconstruction, rehabilitation, that can be done by the military. So you can make them more functional. And even in terms of their recruitment, we've ensured that it is people-centered, that communities have a say in the recruitment, even the ongoing recruitment. The lists are sent down to the communities. It is the communities that determine people that come into them. The same for the Sierra Leone police. They've been rebranded, restructured, and this whole question of community policing, people-centered policing, which citizens can have confidence. Because when there is a confidence gap between the security sector and the citizens, that in itself is a recipe for insecurity. And we don't want that kind of gap to exist. Yeah. So what we've done, what we're working towards, is to establish this whole concept, revamp this whole concept of community policing, and the same thing to also revamp the immigrations department, to also revamp the Sierra Leone Correctional Service from a penitentiary institution to a reformatory institution. Yeah, because they had the Sierra Leone Correctional Service transformed by an act of parliament in 2014. The same for the National Fire Force. Government has provided necessary resources so that they can be present in all of the provincial and all of the district headquarter towns with the necessary paraphernalia, i.e. fire engines and the like. So that in totality, we as a security sector can be able to provide the kind of service that is desired by the people of Sierra Leone, the kind of service that we can provide to ensure that we strengthen the constitution and order of the state, the kind of service that we can provide that will ensure our professionalism. As long as the state of Sierra Leone continues to exist, the security sector is going to exist in perpetuity. So we're trying to ensure that we depoliticize the security sector as much as possible as we can go. We are there to serve successive governments. We are not there to serve any particular government. That's why we have tenure in our recruitment and then tenure in our terms of service, conditions and terms of service, to ensure our professionalism. So these are all aspirations that we've ensured that we work towards, but then all of those are done within the confines of the National Development Plan of this government And as an action plan of that national development plan is the security sector transformation and resilience program that we've almost completed, which is costed, which is the roadmap for our security sector service delivery. And we are honestly preparing now for the 2023 elections and subsequent by-elections, because we are always called upon to provide requisite support to NEC and other functionaries as the case might be. So we want to encourage citizens to continue to have confidence in the service delivery of the security sector, and be rest assured that there are always redress mechanisms for any unprofessional antics or conduct that we are engaged in. I think with those few remarks, I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you.